Ireland, anything can happen, and even a church can misbehave. I mean, building. Here we have an example. It's the church of Kildeburg, the so-called jumping church. We have here, therefore, the ruin of the 14th century parish church on the site of the ancient church of Demmock. After the Norman invasion in the 12th century, the parish came under the control of Knights Templar, a crusading order who dedicated their church to St. Catherine, a saint very dear, of course, to the Crusaders, because she's honoured there in the place where her body is, on the base of Mount Sinai. From 1313 until the suppression of the religious houses in 1540, it was under the care of the Knights Hospitaller, lineal ancestors of the Knights of Malta. So we have work here which has been carried on by the authorities, and we thank them for preserving it, but it's actually preserving itself very well in one specific aspect, this fact that the wall has jumped. Now what happened? According to tradition, a knight, I think he was one of them, was in a state of sin of some kind, bad behaviour, and had been put under some kind of censure. He'd been put under excommunication by the church authorities until he got his act together, but he didn't. And because he was a knight and had social rights, he was allowed to be buried in this church which belonged to the knights. Probably in a discreet place, but nevertheless within the sacred precincts. And according to the tradition that has come down to us, the church, the physical church, couldn't take it. And to remove his body from the precincts, itself jumped, that is, the back wall of the church changed position, and we can see it right now standing in diagonal, without support, without foundations, and the foundations still where they are, where they were and where they should be, and the wall has moved from there. The top is where it was, but the bottom is not. It's just standing in poise without foundations, in diagonal, and excluding the body of the naughty knight. A reminder, and to all and sundry, especially sundry, that we shouldn't think that last word is given to man. Here we have this wall, and we can observe very well where the foundations are. They're there. That is the bottom of the wall. As it was built, the foundations are there. And that should not be there. It has just jumped, and it's in diagonal, which is impossible. It's a perpetual miracle. And so, that says what it says. It's moved some 3 feet from its foundation. What everyone says about the storm or whatever, the ancient tradition is that it did do this strange thing of its own accord, and one can't dismiss old tradition. There's no smoke without fire, and maybe a lot of fire also in places that we can't quite see. We only see this side. And therefore, if a person dies and is beatified in this world, I mean by men, not by the church, it may be a different story on the other side. And it applies also in general to life. We see how there are little humble stones here. Each one is a reminder, memento mori, remember to die. And even though we cannot read the names, the big question is the name of the candidate written yes or no on the book of life? We make a lot of noise and we obtain a lot of glory in this world, but the big question is in suspense. Did we score or not in the final exam? And some crosses are big and some are small. Some have flowers and some have not. But as the Lord warns us, there are many that are last who will be first, those who are not honored here. And there are many who are first who will be last. So, may the Lord have mercy on the soul of this knight. We only hope he did in some way make it, but it's not the best way to die in a state of excommunication. One can see actually quite well. It's disjointed, it's all wrong, it shouldn't be there. And here we have the other side of the church where the Holy Sacrifice would have been offered. One can see how the sanctuary end is actually, as it were, a little bit separated. That also is a reminder of ancient architecture. We can find it in all ancient churches, very old ones I mean, where there was a notion of the Sancta Sanctorum, the Holy of Holies, where the priest would enter alone with his God, facing God and not chatting to men, and certainly not seeking applause. And by the way, applauding a soul at its funeral and giving it beatification automatically isn't perhaps the best thing that it needs at that point. He needs prayer. And the more we beatify him, the less he gets. Here, by the way, is an ancient tomb, interesting in its simplicity, and not afraid to remind us that what's on the other side is dust and ashes. The mills of God grind slowly, but no matter how much glory we get in this life, in the exam hall, on the football field, on the television screen, in internet, or wherever, glory is to be decided not by others, but by the one who made us. And here, looking at all this, I paused and I thought, and I thought and I paused. You must remember that each tomb has essentially one point. It's that of the full stop of time and the opening sentence of eternity. It's the intersection between time and eternity, and we only see the full stop. We don't hear the full story. Neither do we yet quite know our own. But we need to pause and think, what use am I making of time, lest I miss also eternity? And as the American said, one is dead a long time. The jumping church. This is a land where strange things combine their ways, where days that were live on upon the morrow's walls, where calls of thine leave not in peace a work too quickly done, and bid us not think lightly on a stone hewn once to hold a guard, where plod would yet a soul not blessed or shriven, that could not own a place on earth or sky. Nay, we forget that moments linger long yond this long wall that severs time asunder. Blunders here cost aeons of old hurt that age shall call from age to dawning age, where little fear is known, where known is little of the blaze. Swift kindled, yet ne'er dwindled in its days.